Hello, and welcome to Surveyor Says, the podcast from the National Society of Professional Surveyors. Today's episode of Future Focus continues our discussion with those individuals who are making a difference in the surveying profession. Our guests today are David Acosta, PLS, and Adjunct Professor in the Geomatics and Surveying Program at New Mexico State University in Las Cruces, New Mexico, along with Chris Pappas, NSPS Director for New Mexico. NSPS Executive Director Curt Sumner recently sat down with David and Chris to talk about the program at NMSU, some of the challenges the university has faced in the recent years, and how the profession worked together to help make sure the program would be sustained for the future. It's a great story of perseverance and determination in keeping the program at NMSU alive. So, without further delay, here's our next episode of Future Focus right here on Surveyor Says.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Surveyor Says. If you're listening to this show, you've probably heard Surveyor Said before, but if you have not, it's our podcast series here at NSPS, and we are trying to build a bank of really interesting guests and interesting topics that will allow you to learn more about a lot of different things, whether it's what's going on in the profession, what's going on in the government affairs arena. But beyond that, we really are trying to capture, for lack of a better term, the human interest side of what we do, because everybody who's in surveying has a story to tell. There's at least one story to tell, probably a lot of stories to tell. And with what's happening in the profession now and where we're headed with licensure and challenges to licensure and people looking for ways to perhaps undermine licensure, it's really important that we protect and enhance what's going on in the training and education of the next generation. It's hard these days to come up from your bootstraps. You know, I went to work as a surveyor the day after I graduated high school and did that for a few years before college, but that's really hard to do these days. Even if your licensing structure allows you to do it, it's really hard to do it without that underlying knowledge that you really can only get through some kind of formal education. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the program at New Mexico State, and it's been one of the strongest, longest programs we've had. It's been a part of NSPS for a long, long time, or not that we own it, it's just been part of our fabric. And a lot of good people have come out of that program. The professors there have always been really, really good. And not too long ago, they found themselves in a tough spot. And so today, we're going to talk with Chris Pappas and David Acosta David's in New Mexico. Chris used to be in New Mexico, but he has repented and come to Virginia. So we're glad to have you home, Chris.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
So what we want to do is talk about what led to the issue. And maybe, I don't know, David, if you want to start out a little bit and talk about a little bit of history about the program. You know, it's been around a while, and like I said earlier, it's been a success story all through the years. So when you guys ran into the issue, it was a bit of a surprise.
That's right. Yeah. You know, the survey program, I should know this date, but the official start date that it's been around, you know, it's produced a lot of good professionals that have gone to, start their own business, be part of governmental agencies, holding down some major positions out there in general. So it's definitely been a pipeline for professionals, and something that we always knew was going to be there, would be there, at least we thought it would be there, right? So, you know, that's sort of how this all started, is that there was some budget cuts that were happening, and the school was needing some money. So they started looking at places that they could cut down. And unfortunately, it was the equestrian team and the survey department that was going to be cut out of there. And it took our professional organization by surprise, I would say, because it's something that we always like I said, considered to be there. And interesting enough, the way we found out was through a news article that came out in the newspaper. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting for it to come across our table in that fashion. But we all grouped together. It was pretty interesting. We had some emergency meetings where we all had to come together. And I actually happened to be the president of NMPS, New Mexico Professional Surveyors at the time. So, me going into this presidency, I was told that, it wasn't too bad. There's nothing that really, it's too bad. You got to organize the conference, things like that. Well, here we are, just my luck. We got a crisis on our hands. But we all banded together pretty strongly to begin, figuring out how are we going to fight through this. And, there's a lot of things that were going on at the moment. There was a new dean that was coming into the College of Engineering as well, right at that same time that the program was going to get shut down. I actually had a phone call from him, and we started the discussions. One thing that gave me hope from that very first call was that Dr. Reddy is his name, Lakshmi Reddy. He actually had told me a story about how important surveyors were, and he understood the role we played and didn't want to see the program go. So just by his attitude towards appreciating what we do as surveyors, it gave me hope that we were going to be able to come up with some kind of conclusion there.
Right. Well, I think one of the things that struck me about it was just knowing some of the players, the people who've been in leadership of that program basically since it began. Not that they're all still there, but we've kind of known those people all along, and they're all really high quality people and have done a great job with the program. And so if somebody was going to ask me, can you think of a program that might ever be in any kind of trouble? That one would have never been on my mind. It was just
right.
And in my mind, it had to be a shock to them too, because we didn't hear much about it until it was almost a done deal.
Yes, it took everybody by surprise. Like you had mentioned, Dr. Frank and Dr. Worm have done an amazing job, these last 15, 20 years, keeping the department relevant, making it one of, a strong program. And I know that firsthand because I was a part of that program. And but at the same breath, it was just a changing in chapters in a way. It was we have surveying, which is always evolving and changing, and so it was just kind of approaching that time that perhaps it was just time for some changes in general. So it was sort of a blessing in disguise, if you will, that it forced us as the professional organization to say, okay, we need to dig back in. We need to get more involved again. We need to be, we realized that, we came up short in that aspect. We should have been more involved than we were. We kind of thought we were, but there was something missing there. So that's where we started to really sink our claws into this and figure out how we could keep this program going. What is it going to take? And, Chris, if you want to add anything on this as well.
It really sparked the New Mexico Professional Surveyors. It sparked a lot of interest again in the program. We had gotten complacent and let the program kind of run itself and thought it would always be there because in New Mexico we have a 4-year degree requirement for licensure. So we figured, well, if it's a requirement for licensure in New Mexico, then they're going to have to keep it at the university. So we just thought it would always be there. And interesting enough, at the same time, the sunset of the Practice Act in New Mexico was happening, and some of the members of the Board of Licensure wanted to eliminate the 4-year degree requirement for licensure, especially after they saw that article where the New Mexico State University program was going to be cut. So we had a battle on two fronts, really, where we had to battle the Board of Licensure to keep the 4-year degree program, and we had to battle to raise money to help and figure a way to help save the New Mexico State program.
Yeah, that's a interesting point. You were talking about the licensure side, and I'm sure you guys are aware that there's movements all over the place in different parts of the country and the states to deregulate, if you will, or to undercut the whole licensing structure. So
Yeah.
that I'm sure that didn't help your situation any with that kind of attitude. And I don't know where you guys stand right now. I assume you're still where you were in terms of your requirements, but there's that threat certainly seems to be out there and continuing. I mean, it's not something you can just say we took care of it. It's all good, because I think it's going to continue.
Right. Yeah. And what was really interesting in that whole process is we figured, okay, if it's possible that NMSU couldn't continue on with the program, we were going to seek some other alternatives also and see, what other schools may be wanting to take on a surveying program. And we found out that the response was really good. Okay, so it made me feel good about being here in New Mexico. There was other colleges that were more than happy to take us in. And so it was good to know that we had that value out there. And so, just as soon as we started looking in other places, maybe finding some possibilities, well, that's when, NMSU decided to kind of give us a different look. But in that, we were going to have to change up the program. We're going to need to make some changes, and which we all felt like, and I don't want to say changes. I think it's more just an evolution. We don't want to ever discredit everything that's been done prior. It's just more of an evolution, a changing of guards kind of taking place. And in the meanwhile, trying to adapt to all these awesome new tools and technology that we have in surveying now.
Does there?
Yeah,
go ahead, Chris.
Added geographic information systems to the curriculum instead of keeping it kind of separate at NMSU. That now some of those classes are for both. You can get they apply to both degrees now at the universities.
Now, are there? I think my memory's correct. Haven't there been in the past, and maybe still are, some like 2-year feeder programs?
Yes, so that was part of the evolution of the program. Prior, it was called surveying engineering. So it's a Bachelor of Science in Surveying Engineering, and we evolved and changed the name to Geomatics. Now, there was a few mixed emotions on the whole Geomatics name change. Our thought was, from me, from when I've been in surveying, the word geomatics seemed to me to pull in some of those technologies and just to give it a different name. But then some felt also that it was sort of taking a step back. But either way, whatever we call it, we just knew that it was going to be something a little different. So that's where we decided to, instead of being just a full 4-year program, they decided to go into a 2+2 program. And the whole part of the reasoning behind that was that it would allow other community colleges around the area that can take their first 2 years there and then be able to come to NMSU for your latter 2 years and be able to fulfill the 4-year requirement here in New Mexico.
So does that, with the concern apparently that the school had in terms of, I guess it's always about money, right?
Right.
And so I was just curious, with those feeder schools, does the school accept that as a valid way to keep things going, or do they look at the 2-year schools as keeping them from getting part of the money in the first 2 years?
I think it was more just setting up a pipeline, because really one of the main challenges here in New Mexico is that we're a pretty big state by area, and unfortunately NMSU is located right at the southern part of New Mexico. We're about 40 miles from Texas over here, so geographically it's really challenging to get students down here physically at our college. That was part of I think what was hurting some of the numbers is it's just tough. If you got a job up 300, 200 miles away, it's hard to just say I'm gonna start attending school and I'm gonna quit my job and go over there. It's just tough, and some people did it. Don't get me wrong, some people did it, but it was very challenging. There's only a few that could definitely put up with that. So it just opened up the pipelines to allow more people to be a part of that. And also just recently found out the community college here in Las Cruces just recently was given permission to move forward with the 2-year associate's program there as well.
Good deal. Yeah, I was thinking about New Mexico. If you started in the northwest corner and went to the southeast corner, how many eastern states would that cover?
Yeah, right. It's pretty spread out. So
Yeah.
And in the creation of this new program, now here comes the thought as well, is online classes. Hey, let's make online classes. Let's start exploring that. And luckily, Dr. Worm, one of the professors, is very well known there at NMSU. He had already started to experiment with some online classes. Luckily, so he had some some data to share with us, what works, what doesn't work, so he kind of had already birthed that in a way. But we started to utilize it more and more. And now we can say that the latter 2 years of the degree at New Mexico State are fully 100% online. And, we've realized that that's actually really helped bring people into the program.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Curt Worm and I was going to say, Curt Worm and I have known each other probably since maybe before you guys were born. I don't know. We've known each other for a really long time. He wouldn't claim to be that old, but I do.
Yeah, and he's definitely young at heart for sure.
Oh, he is. He's a super guy.
Yeah.
You were talking about the 2-year schools and the online. I've said so many times in my mind, this whole idea of being able to do distance learning at whatever level you can, I think helps solve that question. We always hear the question, where's the next generation coming from? And the answer oftentimes is they're already working for you. You just got to give them a chance to get an education. And that's where I think the beauty of the kind of things you guys and some other people in the country are doing. This is going to sound more dramatic than I want it to, but it could be the salvation of our profession by allowing people that opportunity.
Yeah, no. So an interesting thing to add to that is once we started the online program, we started saying, well, what about labs? How are you going to do a lab when you're online? And we were kind of scratching our heads, but I started to realize, the answer is right there in front of us, is that if you're going to enroll into classes, it's very likely that you might be working for somebody already. Or there's somebody in your community that would like to, put you under their wings. So if you're taking classes online through the labs, you're encouraged and you're forced to reach out to either your current boss or surveyor you're working under, or go find somebody that you're working under. So it kind of forces the communication, the relationships to happen. And when you go to sign up for your test and you do your application, you're going to put down everybody who you had experience with anyhow. So it's kind of already building that as well. You're starting to build your references. And then if you decide that if you're a student and you decide that surveyor is somebody you want to work for and continue working for, you might have a job right there. If for whatever reason, the student or whoever is not somebody that the employer wanted to hire on, then they're not really fully responsible for taking that on either. So it's been really interesting. We got some students out in Minnesota right now that are working with their boss and somebody that's originally from New Mexico, and it's a beautiful thing that they can still operate and be a part of it, yet they're on the other side of the country.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you just answered a question I was going to ask in terms of outreach, because we got Chris sitting over there in Buena Vista now, so he may want to send some students your way.
Oh, right. Yeah, definitely. It's great being able to have that distance learning option, and then I think it'll help with the professional organizations too, like the New Mexico Professional Surveyors or the Virginia Association of Surveyors. Members of those professional organizations, we can help with the labs. If there isn't a local surveyor near that person taking class, they can come to the professional organization and we can set up a lab for them.
Right. So I'm interested, David. Where do you think you are? I mean, I know when this kind of came about, it was almost like crisis mode, right? And so you had to get to work and say, let's fix this, and you did. Where do you think you are right now in terms of comfortability? Are you think you're?
You know, here's the thing: is that we can never let comfortability go away. I mean, be there. This is we're actually still just getting started. We're rolling up our sleeves. Now is the time to put in the work. I mean, we did some work to maintain it, but it's not like, okay, guys, we're good, we can go back. You know, now we have to set up a program. We have to set up a cycle that ensures that NMPS is going to be always a part of the marketing and the pushing of our surveying community here. We can't ever get relaxed or anything, go back to that again, because we know what could happen.
Right.
We can't rely just on the college and Dr. Worm and Dr. Lecture alone to do this. It's gonna require input from us. And one of the things that's really vamped up recently that I've been a part of is getting out and marketing, getting out and going to career fairs, visiting schools, visiting STEM programs, having them come to the college, all different sorts of groups. The last 2 years, myself and Carrie Greiner, who I believe you know as well.
I do. Yeah, I know Carrie well. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been out doing a lot of outreach, and whether it's, you know, like I said, groups or even other high schools in the area that are already implementing some of these design classes, surveying classes, and engineering. We're starting to discover and trying to round up the troops who want to be a part of this movement here. And there's a lot of excitement when we go out and talk to schools. There's kids that are excited about it, you know, and it's just a matter of us getting out there. We kind of expect for people to just, you know, magically find out about surveying. We need to do our part. And I see, you know, the leadership with NSPS out there leading the way, you know, setting the example for how we should be, you know, reaching out and really getting the word out about how good of a career surveying could be. And so I've already been able to encourage people into the program, and I think that's what me and Carrie definitely enjoy, being able to see this growth take place, but it's come with some work behind it.
Well, Chris, now that you're sort of looking at it from afar, what are your thoughts? I mean, I know that obviously this is a success story, and as you know, and I know, both being Virginia surveyors, we have our own issues with finding educational opportunities for people. And I guess, David, you know that we are a state that does not require a 4-year degree yet.
Right.
That puts us in some level of minority, I think. But nonetheless, I was just curious, Chris, if you saw any parallels to maybe try to help the educational institutions here in the state or make them stronger, because, you know, we really don't have a program like the one at New Mexico State in Virginia.
No, the closest one, I guess, is at East Tennessee State University.
Yep.
And they allow Virginians to be in-state tuition
right,
if they go into the surveying program there. So that's a good opportunity. And then we have one of the things that Virginia does is teach preparing classes for the test, basically.
Right.
Instead of putting people into the university, we teach how to pass the test seminars, basically, what you need to know to pass the test. Yeah, and then New Mexico, I hope, will become one of the online leaders as well, like to help all the states maybe become. You can get a 4-year degree from almost any state, and if New Mexico can set up a 2+2 program with other states and other community colleges in other states, like standardize the curriculums in those, that would be incredible. I think it would help the profession all the way across the board.
Yeah, are they working in that direction, David?
Yes, yeah, we're you know, trying to be in alignment, you know, with the NSPS pushes as much as possible. And I know, you know, that's what would be the grand idea, that we could set up something like that. And being that we've been through some of those processes, we just want to be able to be of assistance to other states or institutions that might be in the same predicament.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of New Mexico. I haven't heard anything in a long time about Jim Riley.
Dr. Riley, yeah, he's a legend out here for sure.
Yeah,
he really is. And there's a story. I don't know how true it is, but Dr. Riley would go into one of the engineering classes and speak to them, and he would just start calling them out. Who's coming with me? Who's going to be a surveyor? I know some of you in here want to be surveyors. And that's sort of been my take on it too. Is some of the classes we have, there's more engineering majors than there are surveying and geomatics. But I'm always encouraging them, of how good of a profession we have. And I truthfully feel, they look at me kind of funny when I say this, but I say, you know what? I feel like 10% of you were really surveyors. You just didn't know about it yet. We just didn't get to you yet.
Right.
And that actually, with that same breath there, is that it's not just a major that you have to do. You could also do a minor now as well. So that's kind of been my encouragement to those students that are in the engineering field as well. As look, you're already most of the way there. You got about 18 more credits to take, and you could get your minor in surveying as well and go on to be dually licensed if you wanted to.
Yeah, Jim has been a good friend forever. He and I went through a fire together of sorts.
Oh, really?
The year he became the president of what was then ACSM, and NSPS was a part of that, of course. Right after he was named as the incoming president, I got a call to ask me if I could come over and manage the ACSM office for a few months while they found a new executive, because the guy who'd been there left. Well, I said, sure, why not? My business is going pretty good. So I go over there, and of course I find out one of the reasons the issue's there is because there really wasn't any money.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jim and I spent his year as president and my first year in this job trying to figure out how to get this thing back on its feet again. So we went through a lot together. And he's a great guy.
He is. And just talking about the history of the program and all that, I know he was one of definitely the pioneers of that. And what's awesome is that we have this grassy area there that we do a lot of surveying called the Horseshoe, and we have a cap right in the middle, Point Riley. And every class, every student that goes through is probably going to sit up on that cap or have an understanding of it.
That's cool.
Because we're very appreciative for all that Dr. Riley did.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Chris, you were going to say something, I think.
Oh no, he was one of my professors going through school, and I just loved taking his classes. He was very knowledgeable and really charismatic. He kept it interesting.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun times with Kerry too. Kerry Greiner. I used to see him a lot when I was out visiting, and just everybody I've ever met in your organization has been quality people. Just really good people.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yeah, Kerry's been awesome. When I was a student, Kerry was already doing a lot of the stuff that we're doing now. He was hiring students, during the summers, or to come work for him, giving us all experience. And there's a handful of surveyors that had a chance to work with him, and so he's still a big cheerleader here.
Yeah. Curt Worm and I go way back too. We've known each other for a really long time, and we like to kid each other because we think the other one spells his name incorrectly. But
that's right.
Nice.
So
yeah,
where do you think things are? I mean, it sounds like everything's beginning to come together and solidify itself, but I know like you said, there's still a lot of work to do and a lot of diligence that is going to be required.
Yeah, so one of the promises that we had made, I think something that's worth mentioning, is that like you said, it's a money theme. And part of us saying, can you let keep the program, let us keep it, and well, give me some money then, okay, well, they gave us a proposal of $300,000 over the next 3 years.
Wow.
Okay, yeah. So we got that, and we're looking at each other like, wow, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, you know. And in some circumstances, some people, you know, NMPS representatives were like, we had this on the table, and some of us felt we got to do it. This is our only chance. We're going to make this promise. There was some that were against it, and we, you know, because we don't want to put ourselves on the hanger either. That's a lot of money to promise, you know. And so, like I said, you know, me being the president, I'm like, oh my gosh, what, I gotta make this call, what's it gonna be? And but we rolled the dice, and through Chris's support, Chris Pappas was a big supporter to us during that part, and we decided, no, let's do it. Let's say we're gonna do it. Yeah. And through some of Chris's intuition and his work, and Chris, why don't you hint on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. At the time we had a lobbyist that wasn't really working out for us, and Amanda Alred actually came up with a new lobbyist that we could possibly hire. So we interviewed him, and he had ties to the oil and gas industry and utility companies in the area. So we I became president, and then I had to do the task of firing the old lobbyist and hiring a new one. And with the new lobbyist, we were able to meet with PNM, the electric company there, and the New Mexico Natural Gas, and through those meetings, we found out that they had these foundations that give away money for certain causes. So we put together a proposal to see if they could fund, you know, give us some funding for NMSU, because they basically use a lot of surveyors in there, setting of easements and staking out of pipelines and stuff like that. So was able to write a proposal and get it approved with the help of the lobbyist, and P&M in New Mexico gave us $200,000,
Oh, wow.
$100,000 a year for 2 years, for $100,000 each year for 2 years. So it really helped us a lot. We were sweating trying to find how we were going to raise $300,000, but
yeah.
With that donation, we were able to solidify the reorganization of the geomatics program.
That sure made the extra 100,000 look more doable. Huh?
Oh yeah. Well, we through Kerry's, you know, words, he says, David, I know we could do the 100,000, you know, between everybody and reaching out. I know we could do that, you know, and so the other two, well, we shall see what happens. But it was sort of a gambling moment at the time, but I'm glad we rolled the dice and took the chances. And you know, even when we had those first talks, I just felt it. I just felt like, you know what, this isn't the end. We just gotta regroup, and if anything, we're gonna be back stronger than ever. And in that meeting, I had a lot of awkward looks, like people like, what? Come on, David, how is that gonna happen? You know what? I don't know, but this is what's gonna happen. And,
yep.
And fortunately for us, as a group, we took the right steps and advised each other, and you know, we were able to do that.
I grew up the son of a Baptist minister, and what you were feeling is called faith.
Right, exactly. That's it. And I am in nature. I am you know, an optimistic person in general. So I like to have that challenge, you know. But we're making some momentum. I think at our lowest point we were at 12 students, and now we've gotten it back to up to about 36, I want to say.
Wow.
Yeah, and we had 3 graduates last semester. So I sort of project over the next year or two, we're gonna be close to the 50 mark, if not exceeding that. And
that's excellent.
And a lot of it's going to be online. Yeah, a lot of it's going to be online, but either way, we have a pipeline here in New Mexico, and if you can't come down and be a part of it here physically, you can still participate as well as anybody else in the country. So I feel like we got the momentum, but we just got to keep it going. We just got to keep getting the word out. Social media has been a huge helper to that. Being able to post pictures and media about what we're doing, getting it out to the volumes, that's definitely been a key tool as well.
Yeah, and one of the big players always in that kind of thing is, and it sounds like you've really got a good handle on it, is just convincing people of the quality of what they're getting. And then it doesn't matter where they're living or how they're going to take the courses. They understand the value.
Right.
So you guys have done a great job at that. And I applaud you for sure. Well, we try to keep these things somewhere around a half an hour. And I think we're pretty close to that, believe it or not. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Sure does.
But I don't want to cut short if we've left out anything that we should be talking about, or maybe just if you want to give a little promotional piece for people to know what you're doing and come on down and take a look. You're welcome to do that.
Yeah. Well, definitely if you're out there and you're looking to, get a bachelor's in surveying, New Mexico State's definitely a great option. With the online courses we mentioned, it's definitely obtainable. And one other thing that ABET accredited, we got all the accreditations. That's a good point, Chris, because there are other programs out there that may not have that accreditation that are 2-year programs, or I should say online programs. Right. But if you're needing that, if your state requirement is to have that degree with that accreditation, definitely NMSU is a good choice.
Yeah, well,
no, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, I'll make a pitch back to you guys.
Okay.
NSPS is responsible for the teams that evaluate the programs for surveying and ABET. And one of the things one of the things we always need are evaluators, because they're hard to come by. So you guys ought to take a look at that and maybe think about being part of that team, because you don't have to live anywhere in particular to do it. And I think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 programs that we're responsible for all across the country. But that's something that we desperately need. And coming from a situation like you guys are in, I think it puts you in a good spot to know what to look for when you're going to do an accreditation visit. So you might want to think about that.
Yeah, no, thank you. I love getting involved, probably more than my wife likes me to sometimes, but but we enjoy it. We have a passion for it. And if I could just say also that if there's any schools out there, any institutions or groups, states that are facing some of these challenges, we would love to be able to share this information. We don't want it to die with us. We want to be able to share and help, anybody else with figuring out some answers, having somebody to talk to you about it. Yeah. Something to bounce somebody off of. So I just want to have that open invite out there to anybody who's listening that is in that predicament.
Right. And if people don't know how to get in touch with you, they can always ask me, and I'll send them your way.
That's right.
Well, thank you both for being with me today. This has been a great eye-opening experience and a real feel-good story. One of those where you're on the ropes, but you figured out a way to come back, and
that's right.
That's important in life for sure.
Yes.
So thanks again for being with me.
Yes, sir. Curtis, you have a great day, sir.
You've been listening to Future Focus here on the NSPS Surveyor Says podcast. Our guests today have been David Acosta, PLS, and Adjunct Professor in the Geomatics and Surveying program at New Mexico State University, along with Chris Pappas, NSPS Director for New Mexico. For more information on the NMSU program, please visit their website at et.nmsu.edu. Upcoming episodes of Surveyor Says will feature more Table A talk with Curt, Sumner, and Gary Kent, detailed NSPS Lobby Day talking points from our Government Affairs Committee via our Point of Order series, and many more stories from the Young Surveyors Network. So remember to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, as well as our podcast host, Podbean. And also watch our website, nsps.us.com, for information on future episodes. And remember, it's a great day to be a surveyor.